Aaron Gilmore.
The irony, Mr Speaker, we've heard the last speaker talk about data protection and security. That member is the same one that goes onto her own party's forum and censors her own members about what they can and can't say. Mr Speaker, the Labor Party hypocrisy talking about the ability to protect data is one where their own information of their own party members and donors they couldn't keep secret from the public, Mr Speaker, and it was released. But, Mr Speaker, there is a comment that that member did say. There is an extremely serious matter that was one of public interest, Mr Speaker, and that is one of the Leader of the Opposition and his ability of the public trust and welfare and worrying about where his own money is or isn't, Mr Speaker. I want to walk through a few things. Mr Shearer returned to New Zealand sometime in 2008 to run for public office and be the MP for Mount Albert, Mr Speaker. What I understand is Mr Shearer at that time may have applied for the exemption that exists for overseas returnees and migrants coming back to New Zealand, which grants are up to 4-year exemption for income tax, including interest income, Mr Speaker. In 2006, the IRD brought those rules in place. Mr Shearer is completely entitled to do so. In 2009, he ran for public office. And we're now told in 2013, while Mr Shearer was filling in his tax returns for the 2012-13 year, he understands that due to some information he discovers he needs to fill in some pecuniary interest register that actually has the information of the interest income. Well, Mr Speaker, I want to talk through an interesting thing. You're only required to disclose interest income to the IRD in New Zealand if you have more than $200 in net after-tax income. Well, Mr Shearer has publicly stated his deposit that he has is contained at the Chase Manhattan Bank. He's on record of saying that, Mr Speaker. He's on record of saying it's more than $50,000. Well, if you go to the Chase Manhattan Bank and you ask them what the deposit rates are for various items, you have to have over $400,000 in that bank account to have an amount which is disclosable in IRD rules in New Zealand, Mr Speaker. Over $400,000, because the interest rate at the Chase Manhattan Bank is 0.05% per annum, Mr Speaker. 0.05% per annum. And, Mr Speaker, it's not $50,000. It's probably likely to be $400,000, Mr Speaker. This information is publicly available, and if I can go find it, why can't Mr Shearer front up to the people of New Zealand and be honest with them and disclose the amount of information we're talking about? I don't have any problems with Mr Shearer being a multi-millionaire, but he should be open with the members of the Labor Party and the public in New Zealand how much he has hidden away, Mr Speaker. Mr Shearer needs to come clean. When you look at the information on the other side of the fence, Mr Speaker, we have a leader in John Key, and we've heard from many of the opposition spokespeople talking and moaning and groaning about the differences between Mr Key and Mr Shearer. Well, I say we have a Prime Minister, Mr Key, who's committed to rebuilding Christchurch, and only on the record today, I want to talk my last little bit about what is actually happening in Christchurch and in the rebuild there. Because I'm sure the lady over there, Ms Dalziel, may touch on this in a very short period of time. What I want to talk about, Mr Speaker, is the commitment to rebuilding Burwood Hospital, Mr Speaker, and over $200 million and over 500 jobs moving into my community in North East Christchurch, Mr Speaker. I want to talk about the rebuilding of new subdivisions and hundreds of new jobs in and around the Preston subdivision, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, I want to talk about the potential of building a water park that 20,000 people signed a petition supporting, Mr Speaker, and the Labor Party have publicly said they weren't actually for it until public record and the Mayor did. Mr Speaker, I want to come on and here and talk about the ability for a retirement village who is committed to rebuilding hundreds of units and investing hundreds of millions of dollars, Mr Speaker. That is the difference between Labor and National. We are for jobs, building our community and being open and honest with our mistakes. The opposition, led by Mr Shearer, are being deliberately evasive, coming out, not telling the information. Did Mr Shearer take advantage of the 4-year tax exemption he was required, he offered, he had the ability to do so, under IRD rules? And if so, is it only this year that he's required to declare his income as required by IRD rules? And is it actually $400,000, Mr Speaker, as I believe it is? Thank you.
The Honourable Leanne Dalziel.
Mr Speaker, we should have had a snap debate yesterday as a result of the privacy breach by the Earthquake Commission. It met every